Well, so this afternoon, Ghanaians are appealing to government to fix the skyrocketing prices of goods and services. Surging food prices once again drove inflation for the month of April 2022 to 23.6%. Inflation has never been this high in the last 18 years. Now, according to the Ghana Statistical Service, imported inflation hit 24.7%, indicating increases in prices of imported items as well. Here's government statistician Professor Samuel Enim, who called on policymakers to address the rising prices of goods and services in the country.
CPI for April 2022 was 156.5 relative to 126.6 recorded for the same time in April 2021. The computation of rate of inflation based on these indices, that is 156.5 for the month of April 2022 and 126.6 for the month of April 2021, leads to a year-on-year rate of inflation of 23.6. This literally means that prices of goods and services have gone up by 23.6% over a one-year period, specifically between April 2021 and April 2022. Relative to March 2022, this indicates a 4.2 percentage point inflation rate, higher than the rate that was recorded in March 2022, which stood at 19.4%. This culminates in a first quarter inflation rate of 16.3, which is about 6.2 percentage point what was recorded for the same time in the first quarter of 2021. On a month-on-month basis, that is between March 2022 and April 2022, rate of inflation was 5.1%. And again, this indicates a variation from 4.0 that was recorded on a month-on-month basis for March 2022 relative to April 2022, 5.1%. This is indicating a 1.1 percentage difference. This literally means that on a month-on-month basis, that is between March and April 2022, prices of goods and services have gone up by 5.1%. We do disaggregations at the higher level, specifically the food and non-food inflation, and also from a locally produced items and an imported item perspective. We see that we've sustained the variation between food and non-food inflation for both March and April 2022, which stood at about 5.3%. Specifically, food inflation for April 2022 was 26.6% relative to non-food inflation 21.3%.
So that's the breakdown for you from the Ghana Statistical Service. Well, some Ghanaians have been commenting on the matter. They are asking government to do something about the escalating prices of goods and services.
With the inflation on the goods and services, and even with the petrol, transportation and other stuff, it's kind of increasing too much. I can't remember picking a car from my place, running back to this place. Going back the last time, it was like the same day, just going back, they said they've increased the fare and other stuff, so it's really affected us. Meanwhile, the payments and the salary have not been increased, and every day increase of other price and other stuff, which is making our living a bit hard in the country.
Okay, so me particularly, it's affecting me being a student, coming all the way from Achimota to Osu every day. You can imagine the fare, every day increments, and unfortunately, there is nothing we can do about it. And so, well, on behalf of all students, I can see it's really affecting us. And doing online classes, the airtime and the bundle involved. And so we are pleading that something can be done if possible. Yeah.
So it's so bad. Ghana, we are far ahead to be in this situation. So things must come down so that we can live. Yeah. It's affecting everything. Our pocket is dry. Even if you have to take car from a short distance, you have to pay a huge amount. It's too much. Yeah.
It's really bad because we don't know what is going on. They are not really telling us what is really going on, because as I'm speaking to you right now, it's not easy for me because you are working, your salary is not being increased, but day in, day out, things are going higher, and you don't know what to do to yourself. So the government should do something about this, because it's very bad, very bad.
As you can see, everything has changed. We are suffering a lot, and the government need to do something about this. The fuel price keeps on going higher and higher. And actually, I have a problem with my car, so you can see. I came to Abosonkai to buy some stuff for my car, and things are costing. As I'm working now, the government is not giving money. See the way I'm sweating. The government is not giving money to buy fuel. By the end of the day, the small money that I get, they want to take tax from their money, which is very bad. So actually, the government need to do something about all this. And now they are about to increase the price of the electricity bill and let me say the water bill, which is very bad. At least they have to hear our cry, because we are really suffering. So they have to do something, but they have to forget all those things and help us. We are suffering a lot. Actually, the way I used to see things at first, now I'm not seeing it no more. When I work, I use all the money to buy food, which is very bad. And I don't have money to do other business, other stuff. So I have to use all the money to buy food, which is very bad. So the government need to do something about those things for us.
About the inflation, right now everything is, I don't know, even this thing like this, it could have been, let's say, 300 cities, but I bought it 600 cities, if you can imagine. So now the inflation there is killing us. Because of that, even the customers are not bringing the cars. There is also some cars at the shop that they were not able to afford the parts or pay the money for us to buy the parts for them. So as for right now, it's affecting me because right now I don't work like the way it was first. I think even the petrol, because of the petrol, they are not able to use the car. That maybe the car will even have problem that before they will bring it. Yeah.
Well, so these are the concerns on the streets of Accra. The Economic Fighters League already is reacting to the latest development. That group has threatened some civil actions in the coming days to mount pressure on government to deal with the escalating prices of goods and services. So let's hear from Ni Ayiopare, who's the national spokesperson for the Economic Fighters League, joining us via Zoom. In fact, we understand, Ni, that your leadership is holding a meeting this afternoon on some of these matters. Tell us more about it.
Yes, good afternoon to your viewers out there and to yourself. Yes, we of the Economic Fighters League, as our name suggests, we are fighting for the economic freedom of our people. And of course, the hardship of the ordinary Ghanaian is one of our major priorities to tackle those issues. So consistently, we've spoken about the rate at which the cost of living is rising up. Meanwhile, you find out that the wages and salaries of the people does not see any upward adjustment. That does not really tally well. So I've said consistently that it's actually by magic that Ghanaians are able to survive up to this side, and seem to be doing a very good job at it. But for how long? How long can we continue down this trajectory? And of course, the interest rates you're seeing today is not. The inflation rate is not by accident. It's actually by design. So you realize today Ghana is actually a very what I like to call an administrative economy.
But I'm sorry to cut through on that point that you're making. Many will take you on when you say this is by design. Government has always pointed to the external factors which are not necessarily favoring economic management. And you agree that COVID-19 has been a major challenge. They're now pointing to the Russian-Ukrainian war, for instance. These are all evident factors, not by design, no?
So if I finished my point, you would have gotten the answer to that. But anyway, yes. I repeat, it's by design, because like I said, for a very long time, the economy of Ghana has been what we like to describe as an administrative economy, in that we're not producing anything of value that we can export or trade on international markets, apart from commodities in their raw state, when you're talking about the minerals and then the oil and all of those. But you see, if we were rather focusing on productive investment in the productive sectors, that's when you'll be able to generate enough revenue locally to be able to subsidize most of these things. But as it stands, we import nearly everything that we consume. And that alone actually puts a strain on your currency, because the balance of payments decides that you have to change a lot of your currency to be able to buy or purchase markets on the international market. And that actually brings the value of your currency down. So we've seen a consistent depreciation of the cedi against the dollar in the national market. And the reason is because we are heavily dependent on importation of foreign or finished goods from outside. That is one of the major reasons why our currency is going down, and you have the inflation rates rising or skyrocketing as it is. And I say it is by design because how difficult will it be if you're able to mobilize about $120 million for the importation of tomatoes to producing tomatoes locally, I mean, it would make more economic sense to start producing some of the things we consume the most locally. But people have neglected that and are heavily dependent on importing from outside because, of course, people stand to benefit from the commissions they get from this. That's why I say it is by design, because imagine a country that is producing commercial quantities of bamboo, for instance. It's having to spend about 18 million Ghana cedis every year on importation of toothpicks. This has to clearly be by design and cannot be by accident. No, because if government was really focused on producing most of these high consumables locally, I mean, you just take a few directives to push these things through. But again, we see a very progressively increasing demand and dependency on importation of foreign goods. And that is one of the main factors for the hardships that we are facing today. Indeed, unemployment is another issue that we are facing. But if, again, we are going to focus on producing most of the things we consume locally, you agree with me that would have, created more avenues for people to be employed. And youth unemployment will really not be a problem as it is.
But then what we're likely to see is that the Economic Fighters League will begin a series of activities to mount pressure on government. What are we likely to see from the EFL?
Yes, so in recent times, we've realized that peaceful demonstrations, as we have always championed, has not been very effective in drawing the government's attentions to addressing some of our issues. So we are looking at organizing the people. In the past, we've actually focused on mobilizing the youth. At this time going forward, we are looking at organizing them. And organizing suggests precise actions that are going to make, not just put pressure on government to change our circumstances, but to actually start implementing certain initiatives that would alleviate the conditions that we are facing now. So in the coming days, you're going to see active organization of the youth of Ghana. And yes, clearly together, we are going to decide what the next line of action will be going forward. But for the civil...
When you say you're going to do an active organization of the youth across the country, and I'm sorry for that, what is that to suggest that you're beginning a set of political activities that you have signaled of that you may transform into a political party to contest the elections? Is this the beginning of the process?
So we've not, the communique that came out on the 2nd of December was not that we're going to form a political party. No, we said we're going to organize the youth of Ghana, and collectively we're going to make the decision on as to what's the best vehicle going forward would be to address some of these issues. But all of this will be dependent on our efficiency in organizing the people as compared to just mobilizing the people. And mobilization is just a spontaneous reaction to events, whereas organization is working together towards certain set objectives. And we have said that it's supposed to be the collective interest of the youth that has to be priority and paramount here. So we're going to organize ourselves as youth, and together collectively, we're going to decide what is the best vehicle going forward to start addressing some of these issues.
But Nii, that's where many criticize the Economic Fighters League, the fact that you're always anti-government, quote unquote, if I could use that description for you. This is, for some, the best opportunity to come together to rally the support of the youth in whatever course it is that government is taking us through, so it can pay off in the end. How about that as well?
So the consistency or the track record of successive government administrations, and let me use this opportunity to make this clarification. Our elected representatives are not the government. They are just that, the elected representatives. You, myself, and the rest of the people are the government. We are the government. So it's not that we are anti-government, because we definitely are not anti-people. We are with the people and we are the people. So that's the clarification I want to push out there. And we cannot be seen to be anti-administration or anti-system in that regard, because consistently there's been a track record of saying one thing and doing otherwise by successive government administrations. So it's become very difficult right now at this point to even try to have a conversation towards what the solutions would be. I'll give a typical example. The Economic Fighters League has consistently, with press releases and communiques, suggested or tried to prefer solutions to some of the issues we have been dealing with, particularly on youth unemployment. But it seems it falls on deaf ears, and government is not interested in dealing with this. And a recent case in study would be our campaign, Fix the Country, where we sought to bring government's attention to certain predominant issues that the youth are facing. The response from government was to form a counter movement called Fixing the Country to make nonsense of all the things that we're trying to have a conversation on. Indeed, when we even wanted to demonstrate, you saw the reaction of government. Government saw that as a threat to it. I mean, the government administration saw it as a threat to itself and sought to use the security apparatus of the state to oppress the youth who were rightfully claiming what is their due. So we have said yes, it makes no sense praying to the conscience of people who clearly do not have one, and praying to the conscience again or the goodwill of people who do not have our interests at heart. So we are saying we are going back to the people, the sovereign of Ghana. We're going to organize them together so we can decide collectively, again, what's the best way forward would be and the best means and vehicle to be able to champion that cause. So again, in the coming year and days, you're going to see active organization amongst the youth because, about 60% of the Ghanaian population today is youth. So we believe if that be the majority group in Ghana, change will be well birthed from that group, that political grouping. So yes, this is what we're going to be doing in the coming days.
Right.
But it is not in any way suggesting that we are anti-government administration. No, that's never been the case.
But already we've seen the announcement from government on what they intend to do, for instance, when it comes to the Youth Start policy, which they claim will create some jobs, and some of the interventions at addressing the concerns with regard to the economy. Are you not hopeful that these policy measures will begin to kick in and then resolve all the challenges that we're facing now with the economy?
Yes, again, it comes down to the track record. So we saw a very fantastic policy from the government, an initiative, the NAPCO, Nation Builders Corps. But today, where is that? And that was just dealing with 100,000 youth. Today is no more in existence. They've been asked to fend for themselves in other places. So if this same government comes around and tells you it's bringing another initiative that is targeting the youth to, bring some elevation to some of these issues, it is very difficult to take their word for it. So we're saying rather than sit aloof and wait for things to get worse, we're trying to organize ourselves because, of course, yes, we are the majority grouping in the population today. So we want to organize ourselves and have that conversation amongst the youth. That what would be the best way forward? How can we as youth start addressing some of these issues? Of course, our actions are even going to be in favor of the government, because if you're trying to help you solve some of the problems that clearly you've not been able to address in the few past years, then yes, that should be a welcoming initiative. So we're hoping to have the conversation with the youth again, to organize them, bring everybody's energy together, and let's see how we can brainstorm.
But I was just about asking that would be a vote of no confidence in government, saying that basically the government has failed in fulfilling its promise to tackle the economy. Is that basically the message you're sending across?
That is a possibility as well. And you realize we've campaigned continuously for a change in the constitution. And one of the reasons why we've done that consistently is that Ghana pretends to be a democracy when clearly it is not. And with your permission, I'll just use a minute or two to clarify what I mean by that. So yes, we claim we're a democracy, but fundamental principles of democracy, one, are the rule of law and the equality before the law. We suggest that everyone is supposed to be treated equally before the law. But in our constitution, when you go to the transitional provisions in the indemnity clauses, you find out that certain people who are perpetrators of the highest crime you can ever perpetrate on Ghanaian soil, which is high treason, the indemnity clauses have indemnified these people and have said that no courts in Ghana can actually sit and hear or even attempt to try any of those cases, beginning from the first coup d'etat we had on the 24th of February, 1966. What this means is that certain people have been put above the law, and that cannot be seen to be a democratic principle. Another thing there is the separation of the arms of government. It says that the three arms of government are supposed to remain very independent of each other. So the executive, legislature, and the judiciary are supposed to be very independent. But you find in the same constitution saying that the head of the executive arm of government, which is the president, is the same person responsible for the appointment of the head of the judicial service, who is the chief justice. How can you then ensure separation of powers in there? So even with this tool, you realize that we claim to be practicing the democracy, upon careful analysis and investigation of the democratic principles in the internal, it falls flat. So yes, changing the constitution is one of the main campaigns we're pushing out there. And yes, I mean, it's going to be an interesting conversation. This is going to be a nationalist conversation devoid of partisan politics.
Yes. So indeed, Nee, we'll be on the lookout for that, but we're grateful that you've been able to share your perspectives with us on this matter. The Economic Fighters League sharing their position on the matter there, but also many of you are unaware of the figure. So let's bring you excerpts of what it is that we've been tracking. So if you take a look at what's happening right now, what you have on your screens now is the 23.6%, which is the year-on-year inflation for April 2022. And we know that if you're breaking it down and trying to look at food inflation, for instance, that would then constitute some 26.6%. We have food inflation for March 2022, for instance, which is moving all the way from 22.4% just last month, then moving into the 26.6%, which is the end of April as we speak. The projection is that it has significantly moved by some 4 percentage points in terms of food inflation. So how much it will cost you for food would definitely move. If you used to pay maybe 20 cedis, you're going to see a little bit of some increment in whatever amount you spend on food. But then that's not all. In terms of other factors as well, you look at transport and how it has shot up. You see that there's significantly a change in how much we are spending, for instance, on transport. When it used to be the 17.4%, now we're seeing a significant hike, which is making it some 33.5%. There's also one on household equipment and maintenance as well, which is shooting up. And then we have the overall as well, which is the 23.6 that we're seeing. A jump from some 12.8% as of the last adjustments, announcements that we saw, and then we're moving now to 23.6%. So the list goes on and moves all the way into insurance and education services. So these are some of the issues that are coming up from the figures that we're seeing from the Ghana Statistical Service.